repeat the non-conformist oath. I promise to be different. I promise to be unique. I promise not to repeat things other people say.
And welcome to another episode of Positive Blatherings with Fitz. And in studio today, I have Brianna McInerny.
You got it.
I got it.
Yes. Yay.
And you're from Slice. Tell me I love the name that you have. So Slice.
Inspiration and Consulting.
Inspiration and Consulting.
Yeah.
I think that is really, well, it's inspiring.
Thank you. I'm glad you feel that way.
How'd you come up with that?
So Slice represents my core values, which are success, love, interdependence, creativity, and expansion. And I've built my whole business really focused around those values. And when I played around with the letters, it just kind of came to be one day, Slice.
I just like how you have inspiration in the actual, name of your company.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that a lot of times is overlooked when it comes to consulting or something like that. So I'll take a step back and start from the beginning. So what is it that you do? What does your company do, Slice?
Yeah, well, inspiration really is at the core of it. I would say that Slice specializes in helping people feel very inspired on a day-to-day basis so that they can in turn inspire others to the fullest extent of their ability. We all know that when we're feeling very inspired, that is inspiring. It's contagious.
Right.
So that is really, inspiration is the name of the game.
Is there anyone, going into it, like I go into these interviews not knowing a lot about you so that I can discover it as we move along in our conversation.
I like
that. What exactly are you inspiring people to do? Is it specific to a certain kind of industry or a certain outlook on business, or how does that work? So
there are a few things that I would say tend to be common themes. That being said, the clients probably determine that for the most part. What do they want to inspire? There's a lot of different ways to be inspired and to inspire. But things that I'm passionate about, I tend to attract people who have those same passions. Mental health is one of those passions. So I see inspiration as being a way to take more control over the way that we feel, which to me seems like a very natural remedy or ease of some mental health issues that we see in society today. I would also say that I love inspiring people to embrace more feminine ways of doing things. So we live in a very patriarchal culture that's talked about all the time, and I really inspire people to embrace all parts of themselves, not just the things that society tells us are right and good. Did that answer your question?
Kind of.
Okay. Maybe we should ask it again.
We'll get there. No, we'll get there.
Okay.
I think there's more than one way to answer these questions.
Sure.
Because what we're talking about is a big idea.
Yeah.
That you do every day. I mean, it's a big idea.
It is.
So, map out for me who is your ideal client? Like, who's if you could have like this perfect client that came in, map that person out for me.
So my ideal client, there are a few things about them. They tend to be very creative people. So therefore fitting themselves into certain boxes that society tells us are what create success doesn't always feel authentic to them. So they're looking for other ways to do that and be successful as themselves. They love just the creative process and getting all up in that. They tend to also be people who might have sought help in the traditional systems that we have, and it didn't really work for them. Maybe they had a bad experience or have hard times finding people that they can trust. So that tends to be something that is common for all of them. And they're also really personal growth oriented. They love learning about themselves and learning about other people. How's that? Is that painting a picture for you?
Yeah. So you're mainly these are all personal development
definitely
areas where so you help people on a personal level.
Absolutely.
To deal with their entire lives, as opposed to anything that would also filter into their business life, but
absolutely,
it's not like you only cater to marketing people or helping salespeople find that get in tune with themselves so they can get in tune with the customer. So
absolutely,
you're all about sort of life coaching and that kind of thing.
Yes, life coaching is definitely it's a title that I run away from, and I probably shouldn't, but it just conjures such an image for people. Like, we have a real idea of what a life coach is, and my clients would tell you that I'm not really a life coach, but they don't know how else to describe what I do.
So if you could paint it with a broad brush.
Right, exactly. Life coach, totally. And I believe that the things that we experience inside are actually what's creating a lot of what we're experiencing on the outside too. So when we can become the fullest possible version of ourselves without limits, we end up experiencing more good things in all areas of our lives, whether it be business or personal.
So I have to ask, how did you get to be on this path?
So it's been my path from a very young age. I've always been very passionate about helping people first and foremost. And then psychology was something that really caught my interest at a young age because I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And I experienced some really tough things when I was an adolescent. My first love committed suicide. Oh. And then there were just a string of really challenging things that happened along with that. And I struggled with that for a very long time. I still was very goal-oriented. I always have been, and I had these strong goals to help people. I wanted to go to school in Boston, so I went forward and I did that. I went to Boston University. I got a degree in psychology, loved BU. I had so much fun there. And then I worked in mental health for about 6 years, I would say, after that doing case management. When I started working with clients, and they all had significant mental health issues, they had, anything from schizophrenia to substance abuse, like the whole gamut. And working with them really started bringing up my own issues that I hadn't dealt with yet from the things that I had mentioned before. I mean, I went through a wave of that in college as well, and it's something that maybe you can relate. There are more things to work through forevermore. But I really came to a place where I needed to sort it out if I wanted to help my clients. So I dove into a lot of alternative ideas, and not even that alternative, so like nutrition and fitness. I spent time working as a personal trainer. I also did a lot of research and certification with energy healing. And I just came to this place where I knew I had more to offer for my clients, and I wasn't able to tap into all of those things I was learning about. As a case manager, my job was really do what your doctor tells you, go to your appointment, and that was it. And
you had different ideas.
I did.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be able to share that with people because I just felt like there were so many things that would help. And at the core of who I am, that's what I want to do. I want to help. So.
That's amazing. It's an amazing story.
Thank you.
And this is something that I've actually always wanted to ask folks that work in mental health. Yeah. What do you do for yourself? And how? So that it's maybe a two-part question. What do you do for yourself when you're going through your own personal things? Yeah. And how difficult is it to day in, day out deal with people that have such huge, things that they have to deal with, emotions or just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like huge mountains that they have to climb, and you have to sort of help them find the tools to climb it.
Yeah. It's a challenge for sure. And, the clients that I worked with in the healthcare system had a lot of challenges, even outside of their mental health, like poverty, for one, was huge.
Yeah.
Almost all of the clients I worked with were in financial, dire straits. So, and just awful stories, that you'd hear. So you're 100% right that taking care of myself is extremely important. But people from all walks of life have stories and awful things too. It's in this line of work, you're always learning things about people that stay with you. And I guess to take care of myself, it always comes back to practicing what I preach. Honestly, I have to check myself and say, am I following the advice that I would give to somebody right now?
Yeah.
A lot of times that just looks like creating the space for myself to just kind of relax when I need to let that be okay, to not be working. The way my brain is, I will be working even when I'm not working. If it looks like I'm just sitting there, but my
still
brain,
working through stuff.
Exactly. My mind's going. So I have to be really careful to make sure I'm unplugging and doing things that will get my mind on a totally different, unplugged track, like doing something creative, for instance, drawing, not necessarily because I'm good at it, but just because it feels really good to do it.
Yeah.
Things like that. I love taking baths. I don't have a bathtub right now where I'm living, so I've had to find other ways. Yeah, but
that's a different podcast, by the way. How Brianna finds another bathtub.
It's funny that you say that because trust me, my brain works on that one too. I feel like there's got to be. Well, I'm going to keep my ideas to myself, I guess.
Yes. Going bath to the old bathhouse days in ancient Greece.
Oh, trust me, this conversation has been had for sure. Yeah.
Have you found that there is? I don't know if you would know it before, but social media. How much has that played a role in your clients and people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis? For good or for better or for worse? It's
huge. Yeah. I think about social media in this respect every single day because it's one of the hardest things about unplugging.
It's near impossible.
Right. Our phones are basically an extension of us at this point. I've turned off all the notifications and things like that, but it's still attached to the business, attached to the personal. I find that a lot of my clients, through the work that we do together, end up reducing their social media use a lot, which has been an interesting struggle for me in business. Side note, because it doesn't feel good usually to be on social media. So that is a challenge. Really finding ways to make it work. Honestly, I probably wouldn't even be on social media if it wasn't for business building purposes. And I mean, there are really great personal reasons to be on as well, but
yeah,
it's hard. It seeps in, and we don't always realize how much we're getting sucked in and just totally taken over by the things that we're reading.
And I don't think that there's anything, at least that I know of, that throughout human history that has become so quickly intertwined with the human existence as the invention of social media.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane how, if you think about that, my kids, when there could be tons, and there are tons of things to do, but there's no Wi-Fi and the world is now over.
Yeah, I understand.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And And I've even felt like that sometimes. I have to make it a point to be like, wait a second. What did I do? Because I'm 46 years old, so I remember a time when you could be unplugged.
Yeah.
And so I have to sort of like harken back to the old days and think about those times and go, what would I be doing right now?
Yeah.
I'll pick up a book. There's an idea.
Go for a walk.
Yeah, go for a walk. I just read a study today that said that if you put yourself in nature, like go for a walk in a park or something like that, surround yourself with nature, it affects you positively. It makes people have a better sense of self, and it improves their mood.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the numbers, but it was like a certain amount of percentage of people, and they were studying people that lived in cities and urban areas that took time or that lived within walking distance of a park or some kind of green space. Mm-hmm. Have you found that in your profession?
Oh, absolutely. I consider nature to be kind of like a path to spirituality, especially for a lot of people. So I mentioned that some of my clients don't love connecting with the traditional system for support. They might have had bad experiences. The same goes with the religious systems that we have. Mm-hmm. I think that the way that religion has evolved has alienated a lot of people who could really benefit from spirituality from religion.
Yeah.
And we don't always realize that there are a lot of different paths to feeling spiritual. I would say that nature is a huge one. I know it is for me. If I need to unplug, getting outside is definitely a go-to. We didn't mention that before, but it certainly is a go-to to just get out for a walk, leave my phone at home if I really, really need to unplug. Because, even if you're walking and you get a notification or a text message, it's really easy. Or, hey, that's beautiful. I want to snap a picture. Sometimes you just got to leave the phone at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always found that walking in the grass without barefoot in the grass was something favorite. And I don't like having dirty feet. Mm-hmm. There's a little something about me. But I did find that going and walking through the grass and just being away from things, and it's hard to get away from the sounds of traffic and airplanes going by and things like that.
Yeah.
But you can still immerse yourself, and I believe you're 100% correct when that is a direct path to spirituality. Because if you think about it, we're getting to our human roots. As human beings, as a species, we lived on the earth.
Totally.
We didn't have houses necessarily. We lived in caves or something like that. So being connected with the earth, our lives depend on the earth, and they still do.
Absolutely.
But because we're so crafty and can make tools, we have thumbs, we've been able to do all these things that have ultimately separated us.
Yeah.
Which is a phenomenal idea.
Well, and I think at the core of what so many people are looking for is connection and reconnection with the earth, with nature, I think is a great access point for that, not only feeling connected to spirituality, but connected to ourselves, connected to each other. I would even take it a step further and say that our bodies, are part of the earth. That's kind of the way that I look at it.
Yeah.
We have this mind, and depending on what you believe, spiritual guidance about what might be a great path. But I really believe that those parts of ourselves work together, and our bodies are the parts of us that belong with the earth, and it makes us happier to do things like put our bare feet on the grass or hug a tree, even though that's oldest joke in the book.
Yeah.
If you try it, you might like it. Or even less hippie-esque things like that. Just getting connected with nature. It's like, you're absolutely right. It just reconnects us with who we are at our core. And that always feels good.
Yeah. Do you have a mentor that kind of brought you on this path and sort of showed you the way in some way?
I'm trying to trace it way back. So I just did. I love just going down the wormhole of, all sorts of different ways. There's so much information out there, and I just like to be exposed to all the possibilities and kind of sort through and pick what feels right for me. So that leads me down some weird and wild paths, which I love. But I just did a course all about intuition with a woman named Elizabeth Losey. She lives down south. Loved that program. It was great. Abraham Hicks is another name that comes to mind.
Yep.
Even though, they totally talk about nature and things like that. They talk about all kinds of different stuff, but that's been a big, big one for me is Abraham Hicks.
So you bring up, I'm familiar with Esther and Abraham.
Cool.
Yeah. So with that in mind, talk to me how I'm assuming that meditation plays a role in your life.
Absolutely, it does. Well, I'll say we talked about self-care earlier, and we've talked about social media. Unplugging for chunks of time is really a part of how I make social media work in my life. It's a part of how I take care of myself, and I used to be a lot better about this than I have been recently. And meditation retreats were one way that I could really hold myself accountable to unplugging from my phone and my screens for a set of a few days. So there's that really literal meditation experience. And
for how long? You say a retreat?
The longest that I've done is 3 days, but
wow. You must come back and be like, where's the world? What have I missed?
Yeah.
I can't imagine 3 days. And I'd love to try. I would love nothing more, excuse me, than to go somewhere. And I've had these, when things get really, really tough for me,
yeah.
I imagine that. I'm like, can I just go somewhere and monk it out? You know what I mean? Tibetan monk, sit and cross-legged and just and light incense and just chill.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it would take before I got completely bored. I think there's a certain right? There's got to be a certain cutoff, and as long as you don't give in to those desires to say this is weird, let's move on, you kind of can get there.
Yeah, I guess that's the task, right? Is really just letting the thoughts go.
Getting over yourself.
Right. But that being said, I can really relate to what you're saying because it's the way that I focus. I like to have 3 things going on at the same time that I'm bouncing back and forth between. Part of what I teach, which is a lot around this relaxing, because honestly, to find our inspiration, a lot of the times we need to just kind of get out of our own heads and relax a little bit so that we're not running the same tired program that we always do. Mm-hmm. We have to create space for something actually inspired to rise up or come in. But a lot of times it doesn't work for me to sit on a pillow or whatever and meditate. I'm a huge fan of doing meditations that are more integrated with what you do every day. So for instance, you could meditate while washing your hands. If you're very focused on the sensations with washing your hands, you're taking in, what the suds look like, how hot the water feels, and really just immersing yourself in what you're doing. That creates a meditative state too. And I think that's a huge opportunity for a lot of people. It takes a lot of mental discipline, for lack of a better word, to be able to just sit down for 10 minutes and not, let the thoughts take you all over the place. It's very hard. Even for somebody who does this all the time and prioritizes it. So I always say, pick things that you're doing every day and just focus on making that more meditative, like allowing your body to kind of take the reins and just focus on what your sensations and your different senses are telling you instead of letting the thoughts go wild.
That's interesting.
Does that make sense?
It does. That's it's like taking the most mundane of tasks, like washing your hands, and just really getting deep into washing your hands.
Totally.
And feeling, that does take a lot of intense mental power.
But,
or practice.
It is. It is a practice. And I find, I love that because it means that I can access a meditative state no matter what I'm doing. Part of why that, first of all, I love finding things for myself, for my clients that are kind of like easy switches to things that you're already doing that make a difference in the way that you feel and therefore the way that you show up and what you create. You don't even necessarily need to make huge sweeping changes like go on a 2-week silent meditation retreat or something like that, It makes so much more sense for me when I can take the complicated concepts that personal growth is just full of all these ideas of ways that you can feel better. I like things that you can work into what you're already doing so that you save time that way. And
that's like the multitasker in you.
Yeah.
That's coming up with that.
Well, and if I can only access a meditative state when I'm isolated in my meditation room on my pillow with my eyes closed, then what happens when my coworker, I don't have a coworker, but say I did, my coworker comes in with distractions and, problems, where's my meditative state going to go then? Out the window. Because it relies on the isolation. When you practice the meditation types of things like I'm talking about with more working it into what you're doing every day, it becomes so much more natural to stay there when things try and take you away, which to me is the whole point. Yeah,
that's an interesting point because you're not, like you said, you're not always going to be able to be in that perfect situation where everything is right. Oh, I can meditate now. If you can find the spot to meditate throughout your day, then you've kind of got it,
Absolutely.
What a challenge. I don't know if I could do that.
Well, I hope that we'll stay in touch and you can tell me if you try it out. We'll see.
I was getting into a habit and I've broken the habit, but I was getting into a habit. And when I meditate, I have to have some sort of calming music on.
Yeah.
And I focus on my breathing, but it's still, and I've read books on meditation. I've listened to audiobooks and podcasts about meditation.
Cool.
And I find myself 5 minutes in thinking about something. Mm-hmm. I've completely stopped focusing on my breathing and I'm on some thought process about something and and I have to rein it back.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of, what works for you? Do you have some sort of a process that you do?
Yeah. Well, what's coming into mind for me is that it probably would vary on a case-by-case basis, but at some point, the thoughts that you're having, who knows, maybe you are hitting that meditative state and there's an inspired action that's coming to mind for you to take. By all means, have at it. I know Abraham Hicks, they talk a lot about this, and I've been thinking about it a lot. I was listening to a podcast yesterday. I think it was David Niegel's The Successful Mind podcast. And it was talking about how with the law of attraction, action has gotten taken out of the picture a lot of the times. People want to think that they can just sit and meditate and think about what they want and that it will come to them and that this is the law of attraction.
Right.
But the truth is that
they're missing a step.
Yeah, the action is still a very important part of the process. What I would say, what fits in with my process and what I teach is, yes, you get into this clear state of mind about what you want, and you get into a relaxed kind of place where you're connected with that, what you want, you're connected with your body and kind of like your guidance system, if you will. And then when an inspired action drops in, first of all, it's important to know what your priorities are. So like there's a certain level of awareness that's helpful. Is this reminiscent of a choice I've made in the past that doesn't work for me?
Right.
Does this fit in with my values? Is this taking me towards where I want to go, or might it be a sidetrack? Like, it's good to be aware of those things. But by all means, if there's something that's pulling you out of your meditation, Abraham Hicks will say the point isn't to meditate all day. It's to feel that good and inspired and then go out and live from that place. And when you can take the actions from that place that are inspired, then, that's magic making right there, So I would say if it feels really good and there's just an action that's like pulling you away, then
follow it.
Do it up. Yeah.
One of my go-to books for a long time was Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill, and he talks about when he would do these meditations where he would imagine that he was like, this was his like mastermind group, and he created a mastermind group of like Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Edison, like all of these people.
I love this. Yeah.
Right. And he sat down and he was imagining these meetings that they would have and what they would say and all that kind of stuff. And then it got so real for him one time that was it like Abraham Lincoln came to him in a dream and told him something and it turned out to be true or something wild.
I believe it.
Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that blows my mind. And I know a lot of people are like, come on, getting all crazy, X-Files. But I have so many examples to where I practiced the principles of, what people will say is the law of attraction, where you focus on something that you love, that brings you joy emotionally. And at the same time, you try to apply those feelings to something that you are focusing on getting or making happen. And then you do that and you associate those two things and then you let it go and go about your day. And what's supposed to happen is the universe is supposed to pick up on your vibrations and match vibrations with what you're going after.
Yeah.
And it's happened. It's happened to me. And I'm not like talking huge things because I still haven't willed $2 million to pop into my bank account. Right?
Any day now.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
That check is going to show up in the mailbox.
I can't wait.
But the universe is so funny in that there are so many different little things that happen that line up. And you're like, wow, look at where I've gotten in the last 2-3 weeks. Well, all these little things, someone calls and say, hey, I have this for you. And another person, and you meet someone at the store that says, hey, you know what I mean? All those little tiny things that normally you would just be like, whatever, it's just an everyday occurrence.
Yeah.
If you could sit back, and meditating helps, sit back and look at the big picture and say, okay, there's a path here.
Yeah.
And you have to be, like you said, you have to be mindful of, what works and what, if there's a path, it's like, wait a second, I took that path last year and ended up in jail.
Yeah, you got to be mindful of what you're doing to screw it up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of times you're your own worst enemy. I know I am.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And we learn as humans to get our needs met in very specific ways. And usually those ways turn out to be dysfunctional when we grow up. We learned all of it when we were very young. So something that I've really been leaning into a lot lately is what you just brought up, that the universe has a way of things working out, especially when you're really clear about what you want. You can feel in alignment with that. Like what you just mentioned, the emotional piece, would love to come back to it because that's so super important. But when you're able to kind of do your part and also get out of the way, things unfold so nicely. And unfortunately, what we have learned most of the time is that we have to control things to make them happen the way that we want them to happen.
Right.
And we end up getting in the way when we're too rigid about that, So we talked about relaxing before. That's another reason why I focus on it so much, is that when we can relax and trust that the things we're inspired to do are really the actions that are leading us in the direction we want to go in, things unfold so much more nicely and easily, and those nudges are everywhere. You meet the perfect person at the perfect time.
Right.
You leave your house at the right time to hit every single green light even. I don't know. The nudges can be big or small.
Right, or you hit the red lights, but something happens on the way that you would have something. You know what I mean?
You never know.
It stops you from getting somewhere. So
yeah, you never know.
And things that you might have thought was bad, hitting every red light, turns out, well, thank God I hit every red light, because had I gone all the way through, this would have happened, or whatever.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's just simply not clear, like what is happening, especially in the middle of it. And I think that's a really hard time for people, when it can be the most helpful to have support, is like when we're working on something and we can feel it, and it's maybe something big, and it's like taken us a while to get there, but somewhere in the middle it becomes really hard to trust that it's working out. It feels kind of like you're in the middle of a desert, or like, nobody for miles, and I can't tell what direction I'm going in. But those are the moments for me when it's most useful to really lean into a sense of like trust that as long as I keep putting one foot in front of the other in a way that feels really right to me, then I'm going to get where I need to go. Yeah. And it's as simple as that. It's not very easy.
Yeah. So we're coming up on time, but
it's a great conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for making the trip up from Corning.
Oh, my pleasure.
I seriously didn't know you were in Corning. I kind of feel bad. That's a heck of a
my
drive.
gosh, it's been too long since I visited Rochester, so I'm happy to be here.
So, your clients and people come to you for advice and come to you for help and stuff. Who do you turn to?
Well, it's a very interesting time to ask me this, because I am somebody who has always valued putting support in place for myself. Lately, I have been turning heavily to my own processes because I just found myself in a place where I could tell that I was looking for too many answers outside of myself. And what I do is to encourage people to find answers inside of themselves. So at a certain point, that's not an integrity for me. And it was leading me all over the place on a wild goose chase. That just happened to be the place where I find myself in right now. So I've been really leaning into my own courses and videos and things like that, which has been amazing. But I am somebody who very much values having coaches. I would have a therapist. I don't right now. And my partner is also very, very supportive. He's been a great support in my life, which is probably one of the reasons that it's felt all right to not have a coach right now as I take this time, because I have somebody who will reflect back to me very quickly if he sees me off course of what I'm trying to do, or if he sees me working too hard, which is very nice to have somebody who says, okay, it's Sunday, put your phone away and pay attention.
That's important, because, someone who's driven and who has these goals and it's just you can very easily lose sight of that. And then before you know it, you're in trouble.
Again, I teach what I really need to know. Yeah. It's just my personality type that like, for instance, if my partner was away on a work trip or something, it would really not be that unlikely that I'm sitting there on my laptop for 12 hours, maybe forgot to eat a meal, you know. It's just who I am. So finding processes to really, like, help myself lean back and rely a little bit more on the universe's plan. It's like I'm my own first client, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the only way that it works for me anyway.
So you mentioned before we started recording that you have clients all over the place and you help a lot of people online.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to get a hold of you and, you know, maybe you could help them, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, I'm on all forms of social media. Brianna McInerny is my handle everywhere. I have a YouTube channel for those who are not inclined to social media, but might be into the YouTube. I'm there as well. And my website, I have a blog, a lot of videos. There's a lot of content that I've put out that people can start to dig through and get to know me if they want to check me out a little bit more.
Yeah, we can put links in the description here.
Absolutely.
So that people can find you.
Absolutely. And I'm getting ready to start a 30-day deep dive with a small group on boundaries later this month. Well, so it'll be maybe a week out from when this is supposed to air. So that should be fun too. I'm always happy to connect with any questions that people have. So hopefully, it should be pretty apparent. I'm like hoping that it will be very apparent when they go to my social media and places. I'm happy to hop on the phone when people have questions. I'm really excited about this boundaries deep dive because I've not really done a group like this before, but I think it's going to be really powerful for people.
Social boundaries?
So boundaries mean so much, but essentially we'll be talking about boundaries on the inside. So like boundaries that we set with ourselves about what we will and won't accept from a place of connectedness with like who we really are, what we really want, and who we want to be. There are certain internal boundaries that we need to set to be able to then communicate those boundaries with the people around us. So I plan to talk about both of those things in this 30-day group. It's going to be very intensive, I would say, in the sense that people will have access to me and, you know, there will be short, digestible content that's coming out regularly with like action steps that people can take. And I want to be very available to help people take those actions. And the reason I was so excited to do this with boundaries is because it's really the place where we take the internal stuff and start making it real in like a very explicit way. It's a great opportunity to make choices from the place of who you want to be, as opposed to where you're at right now. And that is a magic making way of kind of taking yourself up to the next level. So I'm very excited about that.
And I believe that you would be the person that could take just about anybody to their next level.
Thank you. That's the best compliment I've heard all week for sure. So thank you so much.
And thank you for coming here and blathering with me. It's been enlightening and inspiring.
Oh, good.
And Slice Inspiration and Consulting. So where can people find you? Like social media, things like that?
Absolutely. I'm on all social media. My handle is Brianna McInerny everywhere. A really great way to connect with me would be in my free group. I call it the Cocoon. And yes, we are very focused in there on developing a strong self-connection. I ask questions in there every day to help people reflect a little bit deeper on who they are. And it's a really supportive group. I would love to have some people join us in there.
I'm going to join the Cocoon.
Oh, I would love to have you.
It's all warm and snuggly in the Cocoon.
Yay! I can't wait to have
I like
you.
that because there's a transformation that goes on in the Cocoon, right?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
very clever.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
section.
I look forward to connecting with some of you. I hope I'll have the chance.
Do it. You will not be disappointed. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.